Okay, so we're back. We've had a
Uh-huh.
bit of a break, took some time out, relaxed a lot,
hmm
and now we're back for episode number 11. So, in this episode, uh, we've talked a lot about relaxation um, in our practice throughout the lifestyle that we cultivate. Relaxing the body and the mind is a large part of what you teach. So I wanted to talk about relaxation. I think we've done an episode on stress before, so to kind of go into the opposite of stress and go into relaxation felt quite fitting.
Okay.
Yep. So, uh the topic was actually relax now because
Okay.
no, not you, because the example of myself. I have a very habitually worried, anxious, fearful mind. Um, and I like to feel like I need to do all of these things before I can relax. I have a big to do list and then I can relax.
Mm.
Whereas you teach to relax now. What does that mean?
It really means that the to-do list never ends. As long as you're breathing, there's things to do. So if you wait till you've got all the things done before you relax, you will never relax. Or you will get a micro amount of space and time. You get a micro amount of relaxation. So why not make relaxation the priority? Why not relax first? Why not relax before you've done things? And then while you're doing things, learn to do the things that you have to do with as much relaxation as possible. Why would you do that? Why is relaxation so important? You tell me. If we're considering relaxation, why? What's so good about it?
Well, if we consider the opposite of being stress is just horrible, honestly.
Why?
Uh, it creates pressure and pain and uh like both mentally and physically. So it's not fun to constantly be stuck in a stressful um way of thinking.
Mm, it
It
hurts.
hurts. Yes, it hurts.
Mm.
So the opposite of that, to relax, doesn't hurt.
No, it releases the pain.
Yeah.
Releases it, yeah. hmm
Hmm.
So what do you want to what do you want to do with it? Where do you want to go with it?
Well, why is relaxing the body and mind important for meditation?
You have a certain perception of what is real and what is true about yourself and about your life. Your consciousness, your immediate consciousness is operating in a certain way. If you shift your attention and bring you, so say you're operating in the senses normally through the day in the body and the world, dealing with the world and responsibilities, and then you get a bit of space in your day opens up where you don't actually, nobody's asking anything of you and you have nothing to do because you've done all the things for the time being. The stuff you have to do later is not till later, so you've got time and space. If you just suddenly sit, close your eyes, and relax, your whole perception of life can shift. And that happens when you take your attention off of whatever it is it's been on and you just take one step deeper into a more inward state, which completely shift your perception of life and what it is. So that's just one level, one layer of it. What happens if you go even deeper into that? Relaxation is very funny because you watch the way your consciousness is operating has a certain level of tension and relaxation. And then you relax it deeper. So tension is released in the system and the relaxation deepens. And then you'll watch that level of relaxation and your whole perception of life will have shifted. Suddenly you might go from being aware of yourself and your thoughts and your relationships and your job to all of a sudden, in one level deeper of relaxation, you're now suddenly aware of all of the animals and nature and wind and earth around you. And you've just totally forgotten about all of the stress that you had with your job and relationships and labels and names. Now you're suddenly aware of a force of life which doesn't experience the stress that you were just experiencing a moment ago. That stress doesn't go with you because it doesn't exist at that level of your consciousness. Now what happens if you stay there? Does your consciousness go to an even deeper level where it releases even that stress? Where suddenly there's no movement, there's no disturbance to your consciousness. It's unbelievably peaceful. Like, it's up to you whether or not you want to be able to access those types of, or those levels of your own consciousness, or are you just stuck in the world? Are you stuck in the part of you that is engaged with stress all the time? Are you stuck in the part of you that suffers, that experiences suffering? The level of you which thinks you are a being and a body and a person and that you were born and that you're going to die. Because that's stressful to be in that. It's stressful. It hurts. It's fraught with responsibility. It requires effort to maintain. It gets tighter, more and more uncomfortable. And yeah, it hurts. You know, it's full of pain. The body experiences tremendous pain. Psychology, trauma, the past, like, it's all at that level. So if you go beyond that by relaxation, deep relaxation, into awareness, suddenly you release the burden of that suffering and your consciousness is free. And that level is always within you. It's just that you're not functioning at that level because you're not relaxed enough. And that's when you see, once you start to go into these experiences, you see that these states don't go anywhere. It's just that you operate at this level because of your amount of engagement in the world and your thinking and psychology. And then if you release that, suddenly you can step into your consciousness to a deeper level, which is still there, always there, never goes anywhere. And you don't bring any of the stress with you. You release the tension in the system, the stress of the system. So it's up to you as to if you decide why that would be important for you. I know why it's important for me. If you want to get to that level of your own consciousness, to be able to connect with that level and function or explore or experience that level of peace and relaxation, then of course it's very important that you learn to relax. But if you don't care about those things, then maybe it's not so important you learn to relax. If your life is full of disease, mental and physical dis-ease, you have pain in the body, you have anguish, anxiety, pain in the psychology, worry, fear. Well, if you could relax much more deeply, all of those things would go away. So if those things are very unpleasant for you, your stress is mounting or unbearable or almost unbearable, or you're worried about the way things are going, or you're just looking to connect with yourself at a much deeper level, then relaxation is the key to answering all of those problems. One of my favorite teachings of the traditional Buddha, the historical Buddha, which I read when I was at the Buddhist monastery in Perth in Western Australia. I spent some time there. He teaches, in order to help the monks understand how their mind operates, how their consciousness can operate, he teaches something along the lines of, if a monk exists in a village And in the village, he is surrounded by the people, the noises, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the experiences of being in the village. Then his mind, his consciousness will be operating, and it will be experiencing the effect of all of those things. The effect of being around people, the effect of all the noise, the effect of the sights and sounds and smells of the village. But if that monk removed himself and took himself just into the forest next to the village, a little bit away from the village, now his mind would no longer be being affected in the same way. The monk would no longer be experiencing the level of stress that he was experiencing in the village, would now have transformed because his environment is different. His mind would now be operating under the stress of the forest, which is much more natural, much more quiet. There's still loads of animals in there. There's still loads of sounds and sights and smells, but it's very different to what he was experiencing in the village. So he's shifted, essentially his consciousness has shifted to a different perspective, even though he's still operating in the same body. Now, the Buddha goes on to teach that if the monk would take himself even further away from the village into a cave, now his consciousness would no longer be being subject to the stress of the forest because it's even quieter and more isolated in the cave. Now he's got no sense of the village anymore. The people of the village, the memories, the stress of the village would not be in his mind anymore because he keeps taking a step further and further away from that level of stress and activity. So he's becoming more and more inactive, more and more quiet, more and more detached from the world, you might say, the world of form. And the Buddha goes on to teach that if that monk stayed in the cave, but then closed his eyes and learned to detach from the senses of the ears and the senses of the eyes, his experience of life, his own consciousness, would no longer be being subject to the stress of being in the cave. He would not sense the cave, he would not detect the cave. In fact, his consciousness would now have no consciousness of being in a cave, and all of his sense of self and awareness would be internal. His whole perception of his life and his existence would be an internal experience. And the Buddha, once again, goes on to teach that if the monk could remain in that state, that it would shift even deeper, and he would become aware of what the Buddha called the very subtle levels of consciousness. One in which essentially, in modern language, we say the whole sense of being, the whole sense of identity completely disappears. So now if you trace that story through the stages and through the steps, your whole existence and experience of life was preoccupied by the world while you were in the village. You thought it was all real and meaningful, and you thought that was life. But in fact, you kept stepping back, several steps back, not just one step or two steps, but you took a step and then learned to sustain that, and then took a further step and learned to sustain that, and didn't retreat back to the village, but instead continued to deepen into the cave of complete isolation. And then you went beyond the cave, you went inward, into the senses themselves. All of that is achieved via relaxation and detaching from the source of stress. So essentially what you're doing is relaxing further and further and further into what you think you are, which is this present experience of being a body, a being, a person. You're going further and further and further back into that. And that is going to reveal to you the nature of the illusion of consciousness and the nature of the illusion of self. And that awakening to that truth goes hand in hand with with awakening to the nature of reality, because the nature of the illusion of self is not different to the nature of the nature of reality. They are the same thing. So if that's important to you, then relaxation is obviously paramount. You need to really get to grips with it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, not to mention the fact that it frees you from a lot of the pain and the disturbances that have built up because you've been in the village for several lifetimes. Yeah. So yeah, what do you reckon?
So, practically, you're, say, laying down or sitting down to meditate. What are the stages of relaxing? How do you relax into that?
It depends on the person. If you know when I say, do you know how to see nothing, to know nothing, to feel nothing, to hear nothing, to grasp at nothing? If you can do that, if you can operate that way, then relaxation is self-sustained. Anything that might attempt to create tension in the mind is dissolved naturally. In fact, anything that tries to create tension in the mind can't, because it doesn't hit anything. There's nothing, it doesn't grasp anything. It doesn't hit anything in your consciousness. Can you sit here now and operate with total detachment from this moment? Can you operate in total presence right now, which just means full awareness, and grasp at absolutely nothing that you become aware of, nothing that you are aware of? At which point there is no grasping at relaxation, there is no grasping at tension, there is no grasping at anything. And so the natural result of that is that the mind is liberated from all of the sources of stress. It doesn't identify with a single atom of creation. But you have to be prepared to be completely present in order to function like that. You have to be prepared to give yourself over totally to the, if you want to call it a practice, to the practice of absolute presence. So if you're very, very interested in very serious spiritual cultivation, then that's what you would do. And if you can't do that, that's what you would aim for. So how do you aim for that? You learn to operate your life throughout the day in a way which is cultivating deeper detachment from events, encounters, circumstances, labels. Your brain, which is grasping constantly at the present moment and things in the present moment and people in the present moment. You learn to train that brain to just let go instantly, to not hold on to anything. Krishnamurti calls it don't record, no recording. In Zen, they have a saying, an old story about a Zen master who's walking down the street with a student, and there's a lady who is trying to get across a muddy puddle, and she's very finely dressed, and the puddle is so deep that she's struggling to get across the other side. And so the Zen master walks up to her with the student by his side. He walks up to her, just doesn't say a word. He can see she's struggling. He just picks her up, carries her across the puddle, and puts her down on the other side, bows to her, and then just sets off walking. And the students, flabbergasted by this, the master can sense the students got a bit of an issue with what's just happened, but none of them say anything. They're on their way back to the monastery or whatever. They've done their arms round, and they get back to the monastery, and they sit down for their lunch. And halfway through the lunch, or at the end of the lunch, the young monk, comes over to the master, and he's like, "Look, I've got to say something. Like, it's part of our vows that we're not supposed to touch women. We're not supposed to have any kind of interaction with them. And you walked up to that woman and you picked her up and pulled her across the puddle. Like, what are you doing?" And the Zen master says, "I left that woman at the puddle, and you brought her all the way back to the monastery." If you can live your life in accordance with that principle, if you can figure out what that principle is, and you can live your life immediately in accordance with that principle, relaxation takes care of itself. Funny thing about that story, that's a Zen master. If you don't know what a Zen master is, that's somebody who's realized the fundamental nature of self via the process of Zen inquiry. They do take vows, the monks, they take vows never to touch a woman. But if this master has realized the nature of self, and so he has transcended any form of restriction, any form of imposition, any form of boundary, any form of, any boundaries, any barriers, which sets him free to the point where he can do that and have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. if you, in your practice, you're establishing these forms of cultivation, these methods of cultivation, with the intention of eventually eventually seeing into the nature of self in the same way to achieve liberation. Are you setting yourself up consciously with intent? What is your practice? These people are very serious about their forms of cultivation. You might logically interpret the students, the young monks' view as being correct. The master took vows. Shouldn't be holding on to the woman. Shouldn't be touching her. But the master says, I left her at the puddle. You brought her all the way back to the monastery. What is it? I don't know whether you can see into that. But if you can see into that, what does that tell you about the nature of your brain? Bearing in mind that Krishnamurti calls it, don't record anything. Can you operate with a brain that doesn't record anything? And so we're talking about relaxation. Is you grasping at your life stress, tension? Is you grasping at your memories, tension? Is you judging everyone that you see and criticizing society and the people that you encounter? Is it all tension? Is you resisting life and grasping and trying to run away from what's happening because of fear? Stress? If you can operate in a way where you have no idea what's going on, your mind grasps at nothing. There is only awareness. Relaxation takes care of itself. But are you prepared to leave yourself at the puddle? Your memories, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas, your wants, your views, yourself. What you think to be yourself. All of your psychological inclinations and patterns. Can you leave them all at the puddle and be like the Zen master? Or do you still have faith that there's meaning in them? The thoughts, the ideas, the memories. Are you still invested in yourself? Do you think there's some kind of answer to the problem of stress and suffering in yourself? The boy, the young monk in that story, brought back a world of suffering with him to the temple. A world of stress, problems, his whole sense of identity, his vows, his meaning, the meaning of Zen, what a master should be. All of that was going on. That's why I had such a problem. So many barriers. The woman, the fear of the woman, must not touch her. The vows say so. The Buddha said so. Like the whole religious belief system, the whole identity is in that thought. And the master doesn't have any of that. He's free. Pick the woman up, put her down. It means nothing to him. He's not sticking to anything. The woman needed help. He would have genuinely felt compassion for the lady. I will struggle for her. I will pick her up. He wouldn't have even had it to that degree. He wouldn't have thought that, but he's putting himself through the muddy puddle. He could have walked around it for himself, but he picked her up, just took her across. He's prepared to suffer, which is not suffering, getting your feet wet, for God's sake, But it would have been a feeling to him to just help. Just help. That's it. Help, put her down, put her down. Put her down mentally. Don't carry her with you. But you're carrying your whole life with you. You're carrying your past. You're carrying your parents. You're carrying your relationships. You're carrying your career. You're carrying your meaning of life. You're carrying your conditioning. You're carrying your burden. Leave it at the puddle. But you would have to be so daring and courageous and focused and sincere to want to learn to abide with no mind. No mind is always relaxing. It faces the stress of life immediately head on and releases it, relinquishes it there and then in the moment. A stress is arising, a pain is arising, one is with it directly without grasping at it, and it is released. In pure awareness, every atom is released and relinquished. The present moment, as it is materializing, is abandoned, face to face. What kind of stress can hold on to that mind? Nothing. That mind relinquishes the cosmos itself, let alone the world of suffering and humanity and identity. Even the universe can't hold on in that space. But you're talking about deep reality there. And relaxation is the way into that reality. It is the way to know that reality. So you mimic it. If you want to practice, if you are told that mind operating at that level is relinquishing matter itself, relinquishing, holding on to absolutely nothing, then you can mimic it as a practice. Can you learn to operate your mind, attention, focused, present experience in that way? Mimic it, replicate it, like the young Zen monk has to do. He has to learn to abandon his views. When the master says this to him, you brought her back to the monastery. The Zen monk is hopefully supposed to have a realization. It's all in my head. I've carried the woman back here in my thoughts, my thinking, my views, my self-identity. It's not the woman that's the problem. It's not picking her up that's the problem. It's this self-identity views that's living inside my head, like a program that doesn't want to let go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's real. I think that is myself. Only because I'm holding on to all these views and it's being sustained. The illusion of an entity, self-identity, is being sustained because I won't put it down. I won't abandon it. I won't relinquish it. That's the fundamental, hopefully, realization for the monk. And then the monk would hopefully intensify present awareness, Zen cultivation, direct watching of that which is present without identity. Because you can contact this space in a small way, in a minor way. A lot of people do that. They think that's the full picture. They take the pills, they take the drugs, they take the LSD, the mushrooms, or they go on a meditation retreat and they have a bit of a breakthrough, or they have a big breakthrough and they think that's it. Well, where is your reality now? Was your reality an experience you once had? Where is your identity now? Where is your sense of self-identity? Do you still have one? Do you still identify as humanity? We? Do you still think you're a person? What do you think you are? Because reality doesn't think it is anything. Reality has no self-identity. That's why the term no self is applied. No mind, no self. Not self. Not myself. Selflessness. So I don't know, go wherever you want to go with it. What do you want to do with that? The way that applies to relaxation is because what are you trying to relax for? Oh, you had a hard day. Things getting on top of you a bit. You want to go relax and watch some TV? Or are you exploring relaxation as a way into deep realization? Do you want to know how relaxation applies to the nature of mind, the nature of suffering, the nature of liberation? If there is a holding on in the mind, there is tension that develops, blockages, barriers to the natural flow of the energy of life. And the longer those barriers and blockages are sustained via your thinking and your internal activity, the more that tension builds up, and that is stress. That is the cause of stress, one of the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. So to relinquish that is the way to end the stress. And you relinquish that by relaxing one's present awareness and present experience. The way that you're operating, instead of operating in a stressful, holding on, grasping way, you enter into the realm of non-grasping, relinquishment of present consciousness. And relaxation overtakes the whole experience, and the self-identity is relinquished from that, also called the cessation of self, or the ending of suffering. So you're exploring relaxation for that reason, and with that kind of relaxation comes a whole world of healing, the whole trauma of yourself, your past, which is the trauma of humanity, the trauma of self-identity, the trauma of the illusion of ego, believing that the identity is what you are. All of that is relinquished, as in let go of, as in abandoned, the same way that the monk who leaves the village and enters into the cave of relinquishment no longer is affected by the village. Is that why you're exploring relaxation? Is that what you want to do with it? Is this answering any of your questions around why relaxation is so important?
Yes. Yes.
Alrighty, so where do you want to go with it from here?
Well, I suppose potentially people watching this may be in either of the categories that you just mentioned. So one for deep realization and another for just finding more relaxation in their daily lives. They live in the world, they're involved in the world. They want to find more relaxation in their daily lives. So, you've talked about the deep realization. So, how for people who have jobs, have kids, have families, relationships, mortgages, um, how can they find
Identify the source of stress and put it down for a while.
more relaxation?
Identify the source of stress and put it down for a while. Well, you've been running around all day, so you're stressed. Okay, well, how about not running around for an hour? Sit down, relax, lay down, stretch, be still, and you will experience more relaxation. Or you've been working for 10 hours carrying a heavy load at work. Okay, well, how about not working and not carrying a heavy load for 2 hours? And you will find you will relax. Or you're getting stressed because you're worried internally about a problem. Well, how about either address the problem, like right now, as quick as you can, or just put down thinking about it for a while. And if you do that, you'll find that you relax. Oh, being next to the kids screaming all day long and shouting all day long and playing next to you is causing you stress at home. Okay, well, how about tell the kids to go outside for an hour, away from you for a little bit? You'll find that you will relax. This is the Buddha's teaching of the monk in the village. Or you're in the village of stress. Can you identify that the cause of your stress is the fact that you are in a village? It's busy and noisy in a village. There's a lot of activity going on. Just get out for a bit. Go and sit in the forest for an hour. So take that principle, look into that, and take it and apply it to whatever the source of stress is in your life. Now, some things are more difficult to get away from than others. Some things are obviously more easy to get away from than others. You might be the source of stress in your life. Good luck getting away from yourself. The monk who lives in the village might internally be battling and struggling and resisting and fighting and judging and criticizing the life and the world and the people. And so when he goes to the forest, he's carrying all the people with him and he's carrying all the views with him. And so he's still stressed out in the forest. And he thinks, oh, it's not working in the forest. So he goes to the cave and he's still in his head with all the views and the crap. And the self and the right, wrong, and people are so annoying to me. There's nobody there anymore. He's in a silent cave, but he is still stressed because it's actually what's going on internally.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the person, on where you're at. But if you have that problem where you are the source of stress in your life, then you're going to have to start confronting yourself. What are you holding on to? What views have you given reality to? What views are you holding on to? Why are you causing yourself so much pain? Why are you causing yourself so much stress? How are you causing yourself so much stress? What are you holding on to? And if you can apply yourself to that problem, you will identify it eventually. You might need to talk to somebody, a good counselor, and they may be able to help point it out if you're struggling to identify it, and they'll give you homework. You'll get homework from that. And you'll have to start learning to accept things more and resist life less, as in acceptance of current events and circumstances. You may have to start letting go more often with regards to things, relinquishing control, etc., etc. And, that's a process of personal development and encouraging internal relaxation, because you're the problem.
Yeah.
Your operation of your brain, how you're using your consciousness, which is just the result of conditioning. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Yeah?
Yes.
So it depends on the person, on the circumstances, as to exactly what's the appropriate thing to do. But hopefully people can figure out potentially a way of addressing the problem of stress in their life from that answer. If you need more help, reach out. Let's talk. You have to go into the details with people. If they get stuck on specifics, or they can't identify how what I'm saying applies to their own life, for whatever reason they can't identify it, then it needs to be pulled up more accurately, more in detail, exactly where they experience stress, what circumstances cause them to deviate into stress. Are they just all round stressed? Is their whole perception of life itself a problem? Are they suffering very deeply, where their whole sense of consciousness is one of tension and anxiety and worry, and they don't experience much joy? And the word relaxation feels like a foreign language to them. Then things like that need a lot of attention and care and consideration in order to start pulling apart the stress. For example, the Buddha, we refer to the Buddha a lot because he's a very wonderful example of a man who was suffering deeply and could not accept the imposed reality, the apparent reality of life, to suffer, to die. And so he had to figure out a puzzle. He had to figure out the puzzle as to why it is this way and what to do about it. And as far as the story goes, it took him 6 years of stress. He was confused. He was stressed. He was worried. He had a problem. It didn't make sense to him, his life. And so he set off on a grand adventure of inquiry, very serious inquiry, very disciplined inquiry. And it took him 6 years. He was stressed the whole time until he wasn't. And when he wasn't, it was done. And all of his stress was relinquished. And there are many other examples, but everybody's heard of the Buddha. So do you know how to put your stress down? If you know how to put your stress down a little bit, well, whatever you're doing to put it down a little bit, try doing that more often, and you might find that it puts your stress down a lot. Can you do what you're doing a little bit all the time? Even internally, mentally. When you go to lay down your body, let's look at it. Okay, your physical activity, excessive physical activity and engagement with the world in its various manifestations of work and relationship and kids and all the rest of it is stressful, right? We all get that. So what do? You stop engaging with your kids and the world when you can, and the job, and you get home from work, and what do? You lay down your body, don't you? And it rests. Oh, okay, so what about mentally? Can you lay down your mental body, your mental activity, your mental self? The me running around with all my ideas and objectives and wants and wishes, and got to remember him, I've got to remember her, the relationships, and I've got my kids in my brain. I've got to remember to get them up for school and get them dressed and how the clothes. My kids are in my head with me too. So you put them down in the physical world and your physical body relaxes. How about you put them down in the mental world and figure out whether or not the mental domain relaxes? And the funny thing about relaxation is, again, just like with the physical body, if you relax the physical body, suddenly you become aware of the internal mental domain. Just like the monk who's in the village, who's stressed in the village, who goes into the forest, who suddenly now becomes aware of the forest level of consciousness. He wasn't aware of that while he was in the village. It was too busy. There was too much activity in the forest. So now he's gone, in the village. Now he's gone into the forest. And then he goes into the cave, and suddenly he's aware of a much deeper level of relaxation and stress, a much deeper level of the stress that the forest. First of all, the forest was relaxing to him because he's come out of the village. Oh, forest relaxation is so nice compared to the village. But then he goes into the cave. Oh, wow, even cave relaxation is so nice compared to the forest. The bloody forest was stressful. But I couldn't identify that because I'd only taken one step back. So you relax your body and suddenly you become, oh, well, now you've got a whole mental domain to relax. What happens when you relax the mental domain? Is there an energetic domain behind the mental activity? Behind the body and behind the mental activity? Is there a process of stress in the energy that is giving rise to the mental activity, which is giving rise to the world, the physical? But how would you know that unless you explored it? How do you relax yourself at an energetic level? We're not even talking about that. What happens when you relax at an energetic level? What's behind that? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Go figure it out. What do you want all the answers? You just want to be told what it is. You got to go in and explore this stuff and relax very deeply. So, the reason I bring that up is a little hint. Keep putting things down. You want to know relaxation, so you relax for 20 minutes a day. You're bloody busy and stressed all day long, so you go and lay your body down for 20 minutes, and you will relax, and it'll be lovely. But what happens when you do an hour a day? Well, it's even better. So what happens when you do 2 hours a day? Well, that's like hard to describe how great that is. So what happens when you do 4 hours of deep relaxation practice every day? And when you wake up and you're dealing with the world, you're also approaching the world with as much relaxation as possible. So the way that you're using your brain to approach the problem of life and your relationship is one of letting things be, letting things go, not controlling. Well, now you're relaxing mentally and you're doing 4 hours of physical relaxation. What do you think that does for your practice of relinquishing stress? Can you do that all day long? Can you do 4 hours of relaxation meditation? I'm talking to people who probably have a very serious spiritual discipline lifestyle here, If you're going to do 4 hours of deep relaxation meditation type stuff where you're just laying still, sitting still, being totally still, and for the rest of the day while you're approaching the world, it's one of release, hand away, not grasping at things, just gently allowing things. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Just let things be. Don't stress about it. It's okay. Let's just accept things. Let's not judge things. Let's not hate things. Let's not fight things. Let's just relinquish and allow them to be. Allow people to be what they are. Allow circumstances to be what they are, and we'll put up with it. We'll abide by it. We'll deal with it. We don't need to control things. We'll accept it. It's okay. What happens to your experience of life when you operate like that for many days and many weeks and many months and many years? What happens to the energy that's behind your immediate experience of life? How does it evolve? How does it expand? How does it increase? The intensity of the energy of life, which is no longer being obstructed by the barriers of yourself and your views and your brain and your stress. How do you evolve? How does your whole perception of experience, existence, evolve when you relax deeply? And remember, deeply means for a long time. People think deep relaxation takes place in an hour. Deep relaxation takes place over the course of 10 years. for 5 hours a day, every day for 10 years. That's deep. 24 hours a day for 10 years. What do you really want to unlock yourself, the true nature of life? Do you want to unlock it? You want to be free to be that full experience of what life itself is, not you, not your ego, not your wants and your wishes, and not your views and your ideas, not your ideologies, not your religion, not your belief system, not your identity, but the energy of life itself, the force of all creation. You want to set that free in you, as you. You want to be free to be that whole experience of life? Really? That's what you're after? Then you got to get to grips with this stuff. No matter how hard it is and no matter how long it takes, you want reality. Reality is a bloody big picture, man. So, get to work. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are pissing around without even knowing it, you know? And I don't mean that as a judgment. I'm not judging it. I'm saying, what are you doing asking for the main course when you haven't even finished your dessert? You think you're eating the main course. You haven't even finished your... Yeah. We're going backwards.
I like knew what you meant.
Backwards through time. People are considering the nature of spirituality and the nature of reality. Psychologically, they're doing that. And they haven't figured out what they're having yet, you know? Like you're ordering your courses, entree, main, dessert, drinks afterwards. Have you put in the work for your entree? You've got to cook it. You're cooking it. I'm not cooking it. You're cooking it. You know how to cook? Are you prepared to get in the kitchen? Get chopping the veg? Nobody's doing it for you. Do you understand? If you can eat the entire meal of reality, you can wake up to the truth, the true nature of life itself. That's what you're aiming at. Okay, well, what are you having for an appetizer? Where are you starting? You know your homework? You know how to get to grips with this stuff? Or are you going to sit at the table having a chat over what's on the menu, thinking you're spiritual? You want to go deep? It takes you 10 years to cook this meal. You want to show up every day at 7 a.m. in the morning and you're not leaving till 7 p.m. at night. If you've ever worked in a kitchen, you'll know those hours are pretty standard. You get an hour off in the daytime to go home and see your family, and then you're back in the kitchen slaving away. 7 p.m. is nothing. That's mid dinner time. You're getting out at 10:30 after everyone's gone, and you've cleaned the whole kitchen. You got to get back in tomorrow. You're talking about the work of awakening to reality here. It's not a joke for some people. It's very serious. The reason it's very serious is because it's real, and the payoff, the reward, is real. There's a reason people go to live at monasteries and dedicate their whole life to ordination and spiritual enlightenment. They turn their whole mind and body and soul and spirit and heart and thought and intention and wishes and daily activity and responsibility and roles they have in the community to fulfilling this. Are you serious? Or are you just walking into the restaurant and you want to browse the menu? So what is relaxation for? And there's nothing wrong with relaxation to feel better. But this is mystic society, so we must explore the whole picture of it. The very first thing I ever learned from my teacher was a method of relaxation called the systematic desensitization, which is where you start with the tip of your toes, you lay your body down. You start by placing your attention on the tip of your toes and you relax the body a little bit at a time, taking maybe 5 or 10 seconds with the toes, moving up into the foot, moving up into the ankle for 5 or 10 seconds, 3 or 4 breaths. And you relax all the way into the shins, into the knees, into the thighs, into the hips. And you take, well, anyway, the longer you take, the better it is. But minimum 15 minutes to scan the body from the tip of the toes, relaxing, to arrive eventually at the top of the head. And depending on how relaxed you are there, you can either just let go, completely just let go and be totally relaxed, or you start again, you go back to the toes. Maybe your mind is extra busy, was extra busy that day, so you want to stick with it for maybe a whole hour. You want to take. Can you take a whole hour to get from the tip of your toes to the top of your head in one set? Can you maintain consciousness for that long, or do you just drift away and fall asleep? And there's nothing wrong with falling asleep. You will relax. But if you're talking about awakening to reality, can you maintain consciousness, awareness, as you relax the body deeply and suddenly the mind wants to expand beyond the form, beyond the body? Are you in touch with that? Do you even know what that means? Well, how conscious are you here of this energy of life that you think you are? Do you think your consciousness ends at the skin? Or do you think you are a person, a body, a thought? What are you exactly? So relaxation is a way into this awareness, a way into this way of seeing, way of looking at present life, this life that is here. It is a way to know God, which some people call God, the present life of everywhere. So relaxation is that too, as well as, yeah, nice to feel a bit better. Go and put your feet up. So what do you want to do with it? Do you want to explore it to that degree? It's up to you.
The relaxation scale.
Yeah, scale of relaxation. Yeah. So if you want to explore it, set up a time, set up a space in your life where you go and you relax intentionally, with focus. Learn to relax. And if you really want to go deep, learn to practice relaxing your life. Relax your life. That should be the name of this episode. If you want to go deep, that is. If you can become very aware of this process of tension relaxation, whether it's physical, mental, energetic, you'll see that the reward of relaxation is cosmic. And the reward of stress and tension is more stress and tension. And pain. And don't get me wrong, sometimes part of the process is create as much stress and tension in your system as you need to before you let go. You'll let go eventually because it gets too painful. That's fine. But when it comes time to relax, it's a good idea to know how to do it. You can stumble into spirituality accidentally if you want to, and that's wonderful. But people who do that tend to attribute their awakening to some force of life, some being somewhere, some entity who might be, I don't know, shining a blessing upon them or something. But those who cultivate awakening intentionally, they have nobody else to rely on. What are you thinking? There's another cosmos out there doing all of this? You think there's some God out there doing all of this to you? Well, if you start cooking your own meals, you'll realize there was never a chef in the kitchen. It was always you. Have you seen that movie? What's it called?
I don't know what movie you're talking about.
Oh, the one where he splits up into all different dimensions and goes and travels through time, and he leaves his daughter behind. Transcendence, independence, something like that. Matthew McConaughey. Anyway.
Interstellar.
Yeah, that one. He was doing it the whole time.
It was him the whole time.
It was him the whole time.
Right.
So if you start getting conscious about, sorry for spoilers there if you haven't seen the movie, it's brilliant.
They've had enough time.
Watch it. You start cultivating deep awakening. You will awaken to your own, the true authority of mind itself, which is what you are at a very deep level. But it is not your ego, and make sure you don't get that confused. It is not your identity. Your identity is not the cosmos. Your identity exists only inside your head. The me with all my ideas and my wants and my memories and my past. Cosmos doesn't have any of those things. So, relinquish this source of stress in your own mind and relax mind itself, and you will awaken to universal mind, which is not just yours, it's everyone. It's connected to all of life. And it is very powerful. It is full of life and full of love, full of passion, full of energy, real energy. And go gentle, go slow with it. You don't have to rush it. It's not going anywhere. Don't stress. Don't learn to relax in a stressful way, you know. Slowly but surely, cultivate a relaxed heart, relaxed body, relaxed mind, and you will awaken. It's unavoidable. It is as the nature of putting a pot of water on a pot of water on a stove with a flame beneath it. Just leave it there at a gentle heat. The water boils, eventually evaporates. It's going to happen, whether you like it or not. Just leave it there with a gentle heat, gentle temperature, relaxation, relax into the heat. Relax into presence, relax into the energy of presence, more and more so as you learn to handle it, more and more so. And the cosmos has got you covered. Simple. And actually effortless. The level of relaxation element is effortless, you know. We're not talking about kung fu and the effort that it takes to get out there and train and discipline. That's different. That requires a bit of effort. And there are varying degrees of required tension in that. But that's a different practice. When it comes to relaxation, it's effortless. Just keep letting go. So do we have any other questions? Are we clear? Does that help guide you a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I feel quite clear. It makes me want to go lay my body down and
Well, that's a good sign.
get into some relaxation. It also makes me fantasize a little bit about a cave. I'd like to find one of
Well,
those.
I've turned my van into a cave for the same reason.
Literally.
It's wonderful when you have a place where you can close. I know a monk who's got a cave. He's got a real cave. It was built for him at his monastery. He's the abbot, and they love him so much they wanted him to have a cave, so they built one out of mega giant rocks. It's only small. It's about the same size as this van. But you go in, and this door, he's got a door on the cave, a big solid wooden door as thick as this. It's one of those where you have to push the bugger to get it open, you know,
Yeah, right.
and it's got gravity and momentum to it. It's got weight to it. And then when it closes like sealed with a thud. And it's fully sealed. And you go inside it. He lets you go inside it. Not when he's in there. But you can go in it on your own. And it's silent.
Really?
You can't hear a sound. Because the way it's built is, it's been built into the ground and they've covered it with earth. They've packed earth on top of it. Like with a big digger, you know?
Yeah.
What do you call them? A digger?
Yep.
Anyway, they've packed earth on top of it. So you go in and it's got the earth as insulation. You can't hear a sound. And he lives in that cave. He comes out of it, he goes to do his food and he talks to the monk.
Sounds amazing.
And then when he's finished with his duties for the day, he goes back to his cave and he closes the door. Can you... By the way, he's been living in there for about 30 years. Can you imagine what it's like to just be alone, to be able to go and be alone in your own cave at the heart of the universe, to just go in there and put the world down and nobody comes with you and nothing comes with you, and you just return into a silent bliss at the end of a day?
The more and more I get to grips with relaxation and silence and peace, like sometimes when I wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, I just lay there like, this is the best thing ever.
Right.
Because it's so quiet.
So
it's essential.
Right. So why not cultivate a life that lives next to this environment, this kind of space? You know, you're in charge of your own life. You're deciding as you wake up in a day what you're paying attention to, what you're focusing on, what you're going to think about your life and your day, and how you use your body to engage with the world, how you construct your environment, the environment you live in, the kind of people you surround yourself with. When you know the freedom and the bliss and the peace of space and quiet and silence, internal silence, and how the environment helps support that, learn to wake up and cultivate that kind of life and experience. Put yourself in a cave. Cultivate a cave at home. Many people have a spare room in their house. Go and be silent and be quiet in there. And as I was told in the early days of my training, when you can find true contentment in an empty room, you've arrived. So a cave, an empty room, with nothing in it. No distractions, no noise, no people, no movies, no music.
No things.
Just you and your own heartbeat. Your own beating heart. And nothing else. Does contentment live there? How long since you went home to that? How long since you left the stress of the world and the chaos of being and the stress of being and went home to the simple heart of life, your own heart, your own beating heart, where it was you and nothing else, no one else. Anyway, mystics go there, they explore it, they have to. It's all about that return home. And peace is waiting for you. That's all it is, bliss. Bliss before you get to peace, but peace into bliss, into even deeper peace, into even deeper bliss, into even deeper peace. That's all that's there. That's all it is. And the world, the world's got you occupied for the time being, and I hope you're having fun, and that's fine, but it's not real. It's all a game, it's all temporary. And you have to go home at some point, remember, you can't stay away forever. So when it's time for you to go home and you want to learn how to go home, start with relaxation. Start to let go of the world. Start to relinquish the things that you've been playing with for so long. The games you've been playing. The things you've gathered. All the heavy burden you're carrying around a lot on your backpack, All these things you think you own. These things you think you possess. You can't take any of them home with you. Can't take an atom. Let alone a mansion. Anyway. When it's time to relax, just learn to let go slowly but surely every day, a little bit at a time. You'll be fine. And get to the heart of the matter. Done. Done and dusted. Alright, are we leaving it there, or is there anything else you want to throw into the cauldron?
No, I think that's all for now.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I suppose we will see you again in a future video.
Yes.
Goodbye for now.